all-in-one comprehensive view of what's happening across the real estate industry, straight from some of the industry's earliest technology adopters and foremost experts in technology, marketing, brokerage, government policy, capital construction, and cybersecurity. As always, this is a three-part show. Part one, introductions and what's new in each of our roundtables posts in these unique business sectors. Part two, sector focus. We double-click and unpack into the biggest trends and changes in the industry. And part three, how to outpace your competition, grow your business. I'm Andreas Senni, founder, CRECo Collaborative, brokerage owner, and commercial director for both the nonprofit and public sectors. Joining me this month is none other than the incredible, wonderful Mr. Saul Klein, Realtor Emeritus, data advocate, futurist, and the original real estate internet evangelist. Saul, nice to see you, as always. We missed you last month.
Yeah, I know. I missed last month. I don't remember what came up. Something came up. It's always good to be here. Good to see you.
You missed a good one. We've unpacked quite a bit on the AI side and so on, but we'll get back to that. Also joining us this month, Becca Carlson. Back again, fresh from Vegas, ICSC. Becca, nice to see you as always. Sadly, Chris Abel couldn't make it tonight. He'll be back next month. And catch the replay or the high-def download post-show to see Dan Wagner's 5-minute tips, tricks, and the latest in regulation straight from DC. We pre-recorded for the first time in this show's history. Excited to roll those in and grow there. Back again, Darren Hayes, none other. Joining us, COE, CEO, co-detectives, my friend, guy who saved me when I was hacked and saves God knows how many famous people. Darren, nice to see you again. It's been a while since we had you on. You also missed an incredible show last week.
Yeah, great to see everyone. Thank you.
All right. So, in traditional fashion, Saul, you're to my right in our Brady Bunch view. Talk to me. What happened? Where you been?
Yeah, well, in my world, things are kind of moving along. There's always lots to report and lots of changes, but the inventory's up. That means the market time is up a little bit. And so things aren't selling as quickly. And that's probably a good thing, not for some people, but it's probably a good thing for everybody overall, just because things were going too fast. Things were on the market for such a short period of time, created a lot of anxiety. And now, not that there's not anxiety with longer listing times, but I think we're getting back to more realistic listing periods. So again, it's always good here. We're looking at always new litigation or new issues with regard to existing litigation, and it's just a never-ending battle in the real estate world.
Well, the battle continues, right? We're always transacting at one level or another. People are always moving. Well, I shouldn't say people are always moving, because I get asked this a lot. What about residential and commercial? Things are always moving in commercial. In residential, some can afford to stay in shelter in place and not sell. It is nice to hear that the residential market is not cooling, but slowing down, I'll say. I do remember the joke I tell people is we bought right during COVID. So it's not like I had a lazy broker. I still lost 21 offers. We were on top of it. It just didn't matter. It's just such a competitive environment. And it is truly always sunny in California. The car wash is doing well. The MLS is doing well. Over to Becca, who's just around the corner, Vegas at ICSC. Becca, how are things going on your end?
Things are really, really good, and I had a great show in Vegas at ICSC. Saul, one of the coolest things that happened this entire week is that someone sent me an article from the Data Advocate. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I know him.
Well, and there's your shameless plug, Saul. Tell our audience, for those that don't know. Where, and it wasn't shameless. I get the Data Advocate. I thought everybody had subscribed. To our audience tuning in, over 4,200, I'll be close to 4,500 some months. The Data Advocate is, and Saul, I leave this one to you.
Well, it's just a website. John Riley and I, a blog. It depends on what you want to call it, that John Riley and I created a number of years ago, just to kind of spread the word as things were happening and changing. And we've got some great people that write for us, and just try to give people a little bit different cut at what's happening in the real estate industry, things they might not see in other places. So it's the dataadvocate.com. Come visit us. You'll find lots of information. Something there will be relevant to you.
I love it. We will put that in the show notes. How did you get the Data Advocate? Someone shared it with you socially, or just by email, or just
someone sent me an article link. Check out
Literally,
this great article. And it was from the Data Advocate. I was so happy.
love it.
Made my day.
So last time we were at CRE Tech New York, Becca was there. She met the client, a member of our team, and she was more excited for your article than she was to see us. No, but that's
I bet you it was probably Summer Gorlick's article. She's a real estate regulator, and she's been writing some real interesting stuff about AI, about regulation from a regulator's perspective. So it's kind of interesting to read things from a regulator's perspective.
So yeah, you missed last month. We actually jumped in quite a bit on perplexity and AI. Well, with AI as a marketing tactic to be discoverable through the AI tools. And I will admit, since that episode, I've spent a little more time on perplexity and others. So when you talk about regulating perspective or regulators' perspective, one of the things I do enjoy is investigating and asking questions, continuing in perplexity, even into the big, beautiful, all of the regulations, one after another. It's worked out well. But if we're going to talk regulations and AI, Darren Hayes, that really falls into the cybersecurity world of it all, at least in my mind. What's the latest and greatest? It's been a few months since we've seen you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Something that actually just was brought to my attention recently, which I'm still trying to learn about. This might be of particular interest to Saul. We've heard of quantum computing, but we're hearing about concerns about quantum sensors and communications, which are progressing to military standards, and Russia and China are heavily investing in these technologies, along with AI. It's something very, very new that, again, I'm still learning about. AI is still being used to perpetrate a lot of criminal activity, especially on the social engineering side, but it's also being used by more law enforcement, by cybersecurity analysts to identify potential threats. But on the criminal side, it's very easy to, mimic somebody's voice, create a video of somebody, and looks very realistic. I think all you need is 7 seconds of somebody's voice, and you can mimic their voice to either carry on a conversation or access an interactive voice response unit, like at a bank, for example.
So just the other day, I saw that at JFK. It was like their conference event or JFK. It was a news alert, and it actually spoke about not just the AI and all of those newer rising threats, but plugging into jacking in your phone for juice is something you shouldn't actually do all the time. We talked about this many years ago, you and I. And Becca's back from a conference. Saul's headed to another conference. We've got 2 very great conferences coming up. Would you touch briefly on that? Just a quick do and don't, because for our listeners, it's been 6 months since we've done our sector interview. We really went deep. What should they do, or what's a quick 1-2 that we can pass around? Obviously, don't put your personal information into AI, but what else?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are these reverse exploits that you can put onto people's mobile devices. It's very easy to go onto eBay and to buy one of those charging stations, add your own logo to it, and set it up wherever you want. So that's definitely something that you shouldn't do. Some other things when traveling, try to, carry an RFID case, I guess a protective case, so that your credentials can't be read from that. We still have problems with car theft, with people using these devices that can capture your key fob. So don't leave your key fob too close to your door or your window, because that can be, somebody can create a clone of your car key fob. So that's another issue. There are RFID wallets, backpacks that a lot of people use to protect their devices. Yeah, charging is a big one, but also just two-factor authentication whenever you can, or multi-factor authentication is really, really important. So there are just a few tips that come to mind.
Well, and it's an evolving world, and I remember the 2 pieces of practical advice you gave me one time. You said the easier something makes your life, the more likely it's going to be used to hack your life. So those key fobs that let you start a car remotely are an easier target as opposed to a physical key. And then the second one was, do not under any circumstances post pictures of properties that are vacant, highlighting that they are in fact vacant because you're asked for it, right? Whether it's your home with the house number and so on. Not to mention the tagging with all of that. But you've actually got a unique group here today. We've got regulation, we've got the MLS with Saul currently as history with tech. We've got AI intruding standardization, Becca with marketing. We talked a bit on LinkedIn's algorithms changing. AI could be a threat, it could be used wisely. Do you have a used wisely scenario for the group, or is it a stay away at this point?
No, it is being used wisely. I know I'm working with some people in the UK on this initiative that's called Violence Against Women and Girls, which is preventing crimes against women before they happen, especially in the nighttime economy around bars and nightclubs, identifying antisocial behavior, and when they interject the police over there, they often find out that these people who are harassing young women or women of any age are often on probation. I have past criminal history of rape, in possession of certain things that could be used to cause violence against women. They have dogs that have been trained to sniff date rape drugs. But on the AI side, they're looking at facial recognition that can quickly identify people faster, but also the potential to identify suspicious behavior using AI models. And so that's one thing. So just some very, very interesting things going on. I know I think it's Carnegie Mellon are doing some research where they're using AI techniques to, as part of the body cams that law enforcement wear, to quickly identify what drugs somebody is on based on their voice and their mannerisms. So that's happening out there. So
you're saying AI can be trained to identify buy signs from our clients, assuming we're recording them as we walk around?
Yeah, well, identifying what drugs somebody has been taking, whether somebody is on, for example, methamphetamine versus marijuana, and using AI to determine that. So you kind of, maybe the police officer has more of an idea of who they're encountering and what they're on.
And it's all growing and evolving, right? So
yes.
That kind of scares me. That sounds a lot more like Big Brother, or taking the license plate reader to a whole new world and constantly evolving. It's very interesting. I use an AI note taker. I love my AI note taker. My clients are aware of them. But given the breadth of data, and now that you saw, is there any AI? What's the future of AI in the MLS? Can I ask that? Is it going to come in as, is it a friend or foe in your opinion today?
Well, so I'm an advocate of technology. I have been forever, and an advocate of AI. And I use it, and we use it at the MLS to help us comb through regulations to find answers to questions that our users might have. And there's
that AI support. Hard to interrupt. When they come to regulations to find answers to questions, is that general support, or is it just, are you just?
Yeah, right now we're using it internally. So we use it to help, right? So our customer service technology, customer service folks can use it to find answers to questions that they might be asked, and then we can train it, and we can also use it to train other new employees that come in, so we can give consistent answers to questions. So there's a bright future for the use of AI in the world of MLS, which is really all about data and data distribution. But I'm going to tell you a sea story, and because I'm an old Navy guy, and the fact is that all the uses, and Darren, those are some amazing uses of the technology, and being able to recognize patterns, and just incredible that we have our wildest dreams not wild enough. We can't even begin to conceive of where this will go. And in 1968, I took a class at the United States Naval Academy on naval science. We were introduced to this new concept of naval ship and how it would be propelled and how it would be computerized. And this is in 1968. And in 1972, I was commissioned. In 1975, I reported to the fifth ship of the first class of ships that were completely computerized. And my job was navigator. And I had learned how to navigate with a sextant and how to fix a ship's position with celestial navigation. And when you were in view of aids to navigation, of lights and shapes close to land, you could pilot and you could get from one place to another. And then after 3 years commission service, I go to this brand new ship. It's complete, and I'm the navigator. So my job is to determine where we are and how we're supposed to get from one place to another. And we had this computer system. And had a button on the console that was on the bridge, and that button said ship's posit, ship's position. And you could push that button and it would give you latitude and longitude, which was in 1975 was like the most amazing thing in the world, to where you had to know what time the stars were rising and know what stars were in the heavens and be able to shoot the angle of the star and be able to time it with a stopwatch to be able to enter publications and extrapolate a position. And now all of a sudden you push the button and you got a latitude and longitude. And at that time, there were only 3 satellites circling the Earth. So as satellites passed, you could get a ship's position. But as that position aged, then the computer would give less weight to that satellite pass and more weight to what we call dead reckoning, which is you're on a particular course at a particular speed. If there's no wind and no current, you go a certain amount, and it would then give that a bigger weight. And so the ship's posit was updated on a regular basis. And this was in 1975. And what year was it when we discovered at MapQuest or any of the other mapping? And today we all have the capability to know exactly where we are. And so my point is that your wildest dream is not wild enough. And the technologies that we all talk about is just the tip of the iceberg, because you can bet right now in the armed forces of the United States, they're utilizing technology that would seem to be a miracle to most of us.
Well, 1,000%. 1968, we're talking semiconductors, right? And today, we're talking quantum computing, which is unimaginable by comparison. Founding of Intel, robotics, the list goes on. And again, today, you pick up that cell phone. It's not that you can find out where you are. There are 100 things tracking where you are all the time, taking that, digesting it, and creating profiles. And to what Darren pointed out, that highlighted tech, that high intelligence, predictive type technology is all being used one way or the other.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Andres. So Darren's telling us how police officers can determine what drugs people are on, and you're thinking about buying signals.
Right. It's just different seat. Well, and speaking of seats and signals and prediction, that's marketing's backyard. I need Becca. You've obviously seen technology grow and change, and we really did unpack this in the last show. LinkedIn, social, using AI. And to be fair, I want you to know, Saul, some of those call outs in 1968, I did cheat a bit, use Perplexity just now. Cheat list. But it's that easy. You can use it so many ways. Rebecca, look, talk a little more. Tell us from this show, and I want to go back to the show because we have to highlight the conferences to get people back in person. ICSC, the biggest show in retail real estate every year. You were there. You said it was good. How good was it? Are we back in conferences? What does that look like?
So they estimate about 25,000 attendees. So it's not as big as I've seen it because I've been there. It was my 21st year. So I have seen the conference at 10,000 or fewer, and I've seen the conference at 40,000. So from an attendance standpoint, it was robust, but not as big as it has been. And I would anticipate that it will continue to grow. There are some challenges around the expense of the conference and the expense of travel that are hopefully are being mitigated in some unique ways. Next year, it's transitioning from a Sunday to Tuesday conference to a Monday to Wednesday conference. That doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but the hotel stays over that weekend because the EDC is there in Las Vegas and attracts 100,000 visitors at the Electronic Daisy Carnival, I think is what the acronym is for. But they're
not a tech show for those that don't.
No,
Totally
it's a tech dance show in the middle of the desert. The kids wear like nothing and go party all night.
There's a conference for everybody in Vegas at any given time.
Yes. Yeah, but they don't always have 100,000 other people competing for the same hotel rooms as our meager little, only like 40,000 people. So, supply and demand, that's how real estate works. So there's a lot of demand for those hotel rooms, and we are anticipating in future years to have it more accessible from a pricing standpoint. And I'm on the state committee for ICSC here in Illinois, and it has been very refreshing to work with their team this year on ways to, kind of add some value and some economy to our upcoming conference here in Chicago. Last year was $550 to attend. This year it's going to be $400 to attend, and we've rebranded it.
Well worth the ticket, right? You've rebranded your. Sorry.
The conference it was ICSC Chicago for years, but it's ICSC Midwest, which is extra exciting because the committee pulled from so many other places, and we're going to get to highlight some great developments in other states and hopefully just build that marketplace here. So that piece is very, very exciting. And, that I think those are the organizations that it's really fun to be a part of when they take their attendee feedback and they build that into the planning for the future. And so let's see.
I'm curious. I wasn't there, so I got to ask. Siri Tech New York, they had AI deployed for photos. So you signed up, and then because they apparently recorded us the entire conference, and they sent you photos of you talking with people throughout the event. You said feedback from the audience at ICSC. Was there more tech or more AI or any change? Or
I did not see any changes in that arena. The convention center itself is in the middle of massive renovation. So Central Hall was closed, which meant that the conference was really split between North Hall and South Hall without the Central Hall between. It was a very, very far distance to get between meetings that were between the, separated in those halls. So I would imagine that parts of those renovations are going to allow additional technology options within the convention center, but that's certainly up to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Bureau and things like that as to what's available and what can be added. I did not see any new technology options within the booth packages, for instance.
Right.
Some of those kind of elements.
So it's been a while since I've been there. I do recall that there was a shift in attending these things and going nearby, sitting out, and getting invites to those. But more importantly, so you went, you spent money, you flew across the country. Would you spend that money again?
Always.
Always, because it's in person that matters. Saul's headed back to the MLS International Forum this year, across the pond. Toronto this year. Not as appealing, if I recall. Where are you? International Toronto, Canada, September 25th. Darren, you're crossing the pond. The in-person matters. The in-person continues. This is the point of bringing. The AI buy signals whether or not they show up. Great. I want to know if those cards, business cards, those people are using AI to communicate, if that's effective. I still carry a stack of cards. I find it's the most effective way to be and to show up in person. Sounds like you're saying, yes, show up in person. Did they hand out cards or did they tap your phone or a QR code?
80% had cards.
So keep carrying your cards.
And the 20% that didn't
got lost. You don't follow up with.
Well, it's a real problem.
Well, so we don't have the MLS, we talk about this often. So we don't have this massive distribution channel of data. Saul, I didn't curious how far things are coming as far as changes with regulation, standardization there. Commercially, we just don't. Cards are your best friend, flyers, and so on. Any big names not there at ICSC this year, Becca? And then I'll jump over to Saul in a moment. Or is all the regular players still there? Nothing changes if nothing changes in commercial business.
I didn't look. Anytime you don't attend a national conference, the first question people ask is whether you're in business anymore. I don't know a lot of people that like to take that risk.
That's a fair statement. Show up one way or the other. Okay.
So when you stop doing things that your company has done for years in succession, and it makes a statement, but the statement, unfortunately, is just begging the question of whether you're even in business versus like, oh, they must be. The first thought isn't, oh, they must be protesting prices or guidelines or requirements put upon them by the convention center or the association or whatever. That's not the question. The question was whether they are alive. Like
whether they're still in business. So, and were there companies that maybe didn't come back immediately after COVID that are now back?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So conference world continues. Tried and true continues. AI, I'm not sure about. I am using it to take notes. So MLS regulation, what's the latest changes there? Your third year at the International Forum. Are you going to do commercial?
Well, first of all, on the point that Becca makes about you have to go to these conferences, and we used to tell people that unless you're there 3 or 4 years, people don't know you're there. And so first of all, you have to build a presence. And then once you built a presence, if you're not there, then people notice it, right? So
100%.
So, in the residential real estate world, we have all this litigation, and we're still kind of living through the case from a number of years ago, but that in August of last year, we all had to implement. And the case of Sitzer-Burnett took place in Missouri. It was a per se antitrust decision by the judge, and the damages that were awarded to the plaintiffs were $1.8 billion with a B. And because it was antitrust, it was tripled to $5 billion. And so you had the damage side, and then you had changes in the industry that were then forced by a settlement. So the National Association of Realtors settled for all the associations and all of the MLSs that were affiliated with the National Association of Realtors, and all the brokers and agents, except for those brokers that earned more than $2 billion, and they had to go fend for themselves. And so NAR settled for $418 million, plus they made changes to the MLS rules. And NAR doesn't have an MLS, but has MLS rules. And if we follow the MLS rules, then we're covered by NAR's errors and omission insurance to protect us against antitrust claims. And so most association owned MLSs follow the NAR guidelines, but this case, Sitzer-Burnett, found the defendants, the National Association of Realtors, and a number of MLSs and major brokerage firms to be per se guilty of violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act, and $5 billion in damages. NAR settled for about $418 million, which is only a fraction of the judgment, and then made these changes. And one of the major changes was that the MLS, which was an offer of compensation, had to remove the offer of compensation from the MLS. Now that changes the way people practice real estate, because people who work with buyers, they want to know how much they were getting paid. The sellers were paying the commission. You could look that up in the MLS. And we had to remove the offer of compensation from the MLS. So that's a major change. So anybody who represents buyers, I know, Andreas, not in the commercial world. We're not talking about.
We figured this out, but go. No, I'm listening.
Well, I don't know that you figured it out. You're kind of antiquated, but that's okay, right?
You're coming back to work our side of the fence. Hold on here. You may have been ahead in tech. Go ahead.
So now what you have is, number one, you can't see what the compensation is. So now as an agent, now certain states have passed laws that say, and part of this settlement is that an agent, broker, can't even take someone out. You can't take them out to show them a property without a written agreement. Forget whether or not written agreement's in your best interest or not in your best interest. If you're a buyer and you want to see a property, the agent if they're covered by this settlement, is required to have you sign a contract before they can show you the property. And at that point in time, you got to determine how much the buyer is going to pay you or how they're going to be compensated. And that's a major change. So we've been figuring out since August, how do we exist in a world like that? And it's not easy for people to change the way in which they've done business for many, many years. And so we're kind of getting this down. The settlement was very, you couldn't really understand everything you were required to do. It wasn't all that descriptive, but we were figuring it out. And just recently, we saw an appeal to the settlement. And so one of the members of the class, Sue, is now suing, saying the settlement's not fair. For one thing, the amount of money that the members of the class will get out of this, it's about $1 billion pool. Everybody who had a property in the last 4 years that sold a property, they're all going to get about $16 a piece back. And so
Realtors included.
Huh?
I bought and sold in the last 4 years.
Well, you're entitled to $16, but unless this attorney, who is, I think, a professor of law at Notre Dame and is in the class, she's appealing the settlement. She's saying this is not right for a number of reasons. One is we're not getting enough money. $16 is not enough. Number two, the attorneys are getting too much money. They're getting about $333 million out of this. And there are many other points in a very well-written, very long case that she has. And so that's another interesting thing. Now, what happens if everything we've been working on for the last year, what if the appeal is successful? What will that mean to us in the real estate industry, to MLSs, to brokers, to regulation? And the answer is, I don't know, but would be a change, right? And then we've got something else called the baton case, which is the buy side, because Sitzer Burnett was the sell side. So now if it was true on the listing side, maybe it's also true on the buyer side, and the damages on that side are estimated to be a little bit less than $1 trillion. And that's a major number. And of course, that would put everybody out of business. But so that would like kill the goose that lays the golden egg. So they wouldn't want to do that. But how might they fund any kind of settlement that comes out of that? And what might happen to the practice changes in the Sitzer case? And so there's just a lot of unknown. Of course, we always say this, right? With unknown comes opportunity. And so some people will figure out how to make this work and on their behalf. Now, Zillow, and a lot of people are familiar with Zillow. Zillow's come out and said, if you don't put your listing in the MLS, then we're not going to let it be on Zillow. And they're saying that to counter something that Compass, a major real estate broker, is saying, which is we don't want to put it in the MLS. We want to do other things first. We'll put it in the MLS later. So you got this major battle between a major portal, Zillow, who's also a broker, and Compass, that's a broker. Then you got Homes.com. Homes.com said, don't worry, if it doesn't go in Zillow, we'll boost your listing in Homes.com. So lots going on in the residential real estate world. It's like every day it seems like there's something new. It's important for practitioners just to keep up with this, because if their customers, if their clients read about it, they might have questions. One of the ways to build trust and confidence in a sales relationship is to demonstrate expertise, that you know what's going on. You can talk about it intelligently, and there's plenty to talk about.
And it spills over. I mean, consistently since those cases, they were so many papers and so widespread that I had commercial clients I'd known forever bring up compensation. I had a client, new client just the other day, negotiated for negotiating sake because she knew that there was there. Well, brokers have adapted, or rather us antiquated commercial brokers, we fight for our value and we showcase our value on signature with a buyer, with a seller, with every client. So I think that the best way is the oldest way. You put it in the offer, it's a material term, and you sign, and you don't ever get in the car and move your tires unless you have loyalty in writing. To put it very succinctly, my time goes first to my exclusive clients. If you're not an exclusive client, go look on Zillow or Homes.com for your commercial, and it's not there yet. and you've always said it's 10 years to see anything. And you were there when you helped MLS launch 700 something MLSs. Now we're down to 500. Bringing it back to data and marketing, those larger data pools, the standardization, this network effect the MLS ones had. It's harder if you don't, I built a platform, some of us here, we've all built technology or campaigns to attract eyeballs. You no longer have as many eyeballs without the buy side, sell side. They're not in there all the time. So is that impacting logins? I don't think so, right? MLSs are still used residentially. Commercial still has the big players for its couple portals. Are you going to come to, is MLS making a shift with Rezo to come commercial? That's really my question.
Say that again.
Is MLS going to go commercial and build out for the future, or do we still have a chance here?
That's interesting. For years, we've been trying to figure out ways to attract commercial brokers to MLS, but the data has been more siloed in the commercial world than it has in the residential world, and so it's hard to build a value proposition, an MLS value proposition on the commercial side. We've always seen that. So we always kind of offer a commercial space, but what happens usually is the listings that the commercial brokers can't sell themselves are the ones that get into the commercial MLS. And that's not to say that you can't make a deal out of those properties. You can, but it's not like the residential MLS where there's this rule, we call it mandatory submission. That's what the battle's over, and that you're required to put it in. Now, I will say, a lot of people don't know this. Zillow gets its listings from MLSs because Zillow is a broker. Homes.com, they get their listings from the MLSs, right? All the major portals, they get their listings from the MLSs. So it's not like these major portals want to become MLSs. They really don't. The hard work is done by the MLS. It's getting the data, it's policing the data, it's making sure that there's a single source of truth for the data. And then what these brokerage firms and portals do is they then can offer the viewing of the listing to the consuming public, and that seems to benefit everybody. That's the trend in residential real estate. And again, in commercial, it's just been much more difficult because there hasn't been this requirement that you submit your listing to a centralized database.
To be fair, we didn't have one, right? And not just submit, it's the update thing. What I do love about the MLS is the forced update within 72 hours. If it's on the MLS, you know it's valid. If you're in an MLS, you know it's up to date and contract. And data runs rampant, as we all understand and see. I'm waiting to see how Perplexity and all these AI tools may do some more legwork into the MLS in the future, residentially, commercially. Remove the layer, commercial's opaque for a reason. But speaking of data and marketing and so on.
Well, Andreas, before you go, just think about using AI to say to a large language model, I'm looking for a home in this area in this price that matches these characteristics. And then the AI goes out around the internet and finds the properties and where they are. And that gives you, it can be used as a search mechanism, right? As a search tool for consumers.
This is actually where we ended up last month. Becca was highlighting, or I forgot how we got there, but effectively, Becca, and I'll let you reshare it. It was about discoverability, not just for listings or yourself, but your business. You really touched on it well.
Well, and that's just how positioning your business has changed in this modern era. It is, what are the questions that you answer? And when you think through your narrative and the information that you're putting out, understanding the questions that others are asking, because they're not looking by keyword, they're asking real questions, and they're asking them in generative AI models and where all that information is aggregated, you have the opportunity to build into that, because you can have that push-pull relationship where you're pushing information out, but you're also pulling those people to you simultaneously by putting the information and the answers the answers you have for regular questions that are asked in those generative AI situations, building out that data set to provide to it so that it becomes part of its book of business. Certainly nothing proprietary. You're not putting in your deal analysis. Do not put in your deal analysis, please, ever.
Well,
However,
please do, because that would be great for me. But otherwise,
no, it wouldn't. Stop. Stop. We know we have to fact check anyway, right? So slow down, Andreas. You're not just randomly pulling stuff out of there, even if it looks good.
AI hallucinates. Darren or Saul told me that statement, and I think it's true today. There's nothing fact checking your AI. If you don't know the answer or enough about an answer, how do you know when it goes on the ground? Sorry to jump in.
For sure. No, but you have, so we have this we're at this unique pinpoint in time that we can start feeding AI the information so that it becomes a search tool for people to find us. And I think that we're at a very exciting time right now because there's not, that's not going to exist someday.
Well, and to Darren's earlier warnings, and the threat being at the same time, bad actors are teaching AI to hunt for us and do bad things. It all happens in parallel time. I do have a follow-up question from last session. So I went in, I put my business in. I joked that what you were talking about is like being the first one on Google My Business, getting in before everyone else and getting to the front page of Google, which was an immensely valuable tool. Do you have to pay for the AI tools to do what you're talking about? You don't, right? You just upload and go. All right. That was my key question. I meant to follow up with you on it because I've been on it. Perplexity is by far my friend. We are at 6:42. We're moving through part one, part two. Darren, a lot is happening in the post cybersecurity regulation. Anything outside of anything specific on AI usage? Because you are also a professor. As far as schools, and the reason I bring this up, real estate and listings. Saul, I would love the AI models to get trained in how to write real estate correctly, listings and so on, back up. But I can spot within 2 seconds that something's written by AI. It's just not right. So we're not there yet, but please open up the MLS so we can get better. But that's just bad data in some of those remarks. I think we can agree what agents write isn't a very good source of truth to teach. So is there anything out there educationally, regulatory, or otherwise there that's giving us, instead of garbage in, garbage out, how do we know it's garbage? It's good data going in so we can get good data coming out. It's not our area of expertise. You can't go to a professor. There's no professor AI, right? So I'll leave that one to you, professor.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at who's backing these certain AI models. I think that there's a lot of people who've asked questions about DeepSeek, which is very, very popular, and China has made a lot of progress in AI. But should you really be using these tools? No, certainly not if you're working with government agencies. And who is backing that AI model? So one of those AI tools that I would probably trust a little bit more would be Copilot and Microsoft and to some extent Google. But you've got to think as well about having your on-premise AI model and developing something that's off the grid. There are hardware requirements which make it a little bit expensive, but I think we're moving in a direction with AI being adopted by so many people and so many people doing their own thing that there should be some mandatory training for people on how to use this. That's separate from the canned kind of cybersecurity training that we all hate and grimace at. That we really need to think about how we use AI tools in a smart way, because by using these tools, we're also contributing to the body of knowledge, and people will use those AI models to find out information that you're feeding it. And, these AI models are only so smart, meaning that when it says you're doing something unethical, I can't give you an answer on that. There's other questions that you can ask to make it give you an answer to unethical questions. And people don't realize that it's all about the questions you ask. And the first answer you may get is this is illegal or this is unethical, but there's lots of ways around this with AI models. So again, I've seen companies get into trouble with their employees using AI tools because like one company, for example, where HR was using an AI tool to create questions for interviews. And when people would ask that AI model, what kind of questions might I get if I go for an interview at this place? They knew all the questions that they were going to be asked before the interview happened because human resources had used the tool to get the questions. So again, be careful with AI and these tools.
So it's getting the questions or the answers or cheating. Yes, you can cheat, but as you just succinctly put, asking the right questions, how do you know you're prompting it correctly to get a valid response that is going to help your business? Because if you prompt it incorrectly, it could send you the wrong. It tries to sound smart. Because the way I look at it is a 12-year-old who tries to use big words they don't know. But if they sound good together, they put them together on the AI side. I do like the perplexity shows me where it cites sources. So again, Becca, thank you for putting that one back to the top of my list. Very curious to how things progress on the MLS side, opening up data and partnerships therein, because we are down to 500 or so, down to 700 through all of this. NAR is still guiding. I'm waiting to see Saul's next course, AI Pro, it's ePro 2.0, maybe not.
So Andreas, we do have an AI capability where we feed it all the documentation. And then when you query it, when you prompt it, it only looks at what we fed it. So, we feed it our regulations and NAR's regulations and the California real estate law. And so we put the information in. And
yours is black box.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So what it does, it just makes searching easier. Somebody asks a question and we could all go try to look it up in all these different publications, or we can just ask the AI and it will then bring back what's in those publications for us to then look at and analyze before we talk to people about it.
Well, so that goes back to what most people think sales is just smiling, shaking hands, convincing people to say yes and getting people to buy, right? But at the end of the day, we as advisors, brokers, some of us, and educators, we teach people how to make decisions, we connect dots, navigate, right? But most importantly, we simplify what may be complicated and we get them there in the shortest possible time frame. Not to mention a few other things. What you just said is what the AI is doing for your team, right? It's taking that massive data. Can I use your black box? I'd love to feed it some of our data and see what it spits out on the investment side. Is that the next step for the residential agents looking, as an example, expired faults, things of that? Just re-asking and reorienting based on their own. Can they add to it? Just your team. Is that the next? What's next?
Yeah, for us, we're doing it internally before we open it up to all of our users.
Right? But sounds like you will.
Well, we're hoping that we get the result we're looking for so that we can. You bet.
Darren might know this off the top of his head. What was the first Twitter online bot? I think it was from Twitter. And somebody tricked it and it went off the rails. So caution is key. So I totally agree there. It was Microsoft. They put a bot out and it was a chat bot. So
I was just going to say one thing came to mind. I visited a university that does a lot of research in different areas of technology and science, and I was really, really impressed with some of the things that they were using AI for. So, for example, having cameras on buses that identify problems in the road surface, and that information is fed back to the Department of Transportation to look at where they're going to deploy resources to fix roads. Another area was looking at robots that work in agriculture, not only to pick fruit, for example, but to use AI to identify potential diseases on crops and then send feedback to get potential chemicals that may be used on those crops to prevent that and that kind of thing. So using AI to not just help carry out production or carry out a task, but identifying problems that need to be addressed.
That reminds me of Watson in early days where they pointed it at all the prescriptions, the symptoms, and all the medical testing, right? And they started showing basically new ways to use prescription for, let's say, epilepsy, was solving all the symptoms for another less known disease, right? In that regard, I think it's a great research tool. I think it is absolutely a day one intern. I've said it for 2 years now, although I do have it and I have my day one intern. I use it all the time. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see where it's headed. To Saul's point, we couldn't imagine where it is today 10 years ago. But look at it today. Look at places, look at these other platforms and what they're doing with our data, the big data that we put in. In MLS, residential world, that's the MLS. They get it all there. Commercial, we're opaque for a reason. I think we'll stay that way. And the rest of the world seems to be waking up to the fact that maybe being a little more opaque online is a good thing, that maybe your data shouldn't be, at least not so much. And marketing just keeps adapting to the change. And regulation's way behind, but we're getting there. So with that being said, 6:51, we'll get into the top of the hour. We touched on a lot of things here. Bases we haven't seen for a while. The show continues to grow. We're now in June. 6 episodes away from our 100th episode. We've got the events coming up. I'd be remiss to not talk about those events. But before I do, Saul, car wash aside, MLS aside, you founded the first real estate tech force. You didn't see all this coming. What is your prediction for 5 years out? Right? Give us your best shot for the industry. Not a month from now, but what could they do today to really align themselves for the next 5 years?
First of all, I think your wildest dream's not wild enough. I said that.
Yeah,
it's hard to imagine. You don't have a starting point. It's hard to imagine where this might go. But I think that people who list and sell real estate today need to themselves be thinking about 5 years from now, what do you believe the job description of a real estate broker or a real estate agent, what's that job description going to look like? And what are the skill sets that are going to be required of somebody who lists and sells real estate 5 years from now? And what's the compensation model of somebody who lists and sells real estate 5 years from now? And so one of the things I would recommend people look at is dual licensing, because I see a convergence of the financial world and the real estate world and the data that's collected and utilized in both scenarios and the value in that data. And it costs a lot of money to manufacture a loan today. And we know there are entities that are doing everything they can to minimize that cost. And we know there's this downward pressure on real estate commissions. And so and just think about this, how many real estate sales is NAR projecting for this year? Like 3.5 million? And what is it typically? 5 million? And so just with the number of sale opportunities that are available, that number is going to shrink. And so how are you going to do more with less? Right now, hopefully we'll get sales back up and we won't have to worry about that part of the equation. But that's something that people should be thinking about. So where do you believe your real estate marketplace will be 5 years from now? And then what can you do to school yourself so that you can be a competitor in that market? And individually, what are those things? I can't begin to tell you, but I think paying attention to some of the things that we were talking about today will help move you down that path.
It's proven out. The show keeps growing. Our audience loves it, right? So, because this was a lot of AI focus, the answer to the question, what does the job description look like in 2030? Because I did ask it while we were sitting here. The 2030 projection, same plus more tech-driven and more client-focused. Top line bullet. Right?
Did you ask AI? Did you ask?
I did. That's the 2030. That was the Perplexity's answer. I'm going to input this show recording afterwards to see how it adapts. Maybe see, but that's the answer. Technology-driven, advanced data, and to Darren, advanced data security understanding, regulatory compliance, all summary description for a broker, commercial real estate broker, come 2030. And sustainability, green practices, certifications. Most importantly, most digital first, virtual hours, remote consultations. I don't believe that one will still be in person and digital. I don't know about remote. Maybe. And leadership, leading remote, diverse, tech-enabled teams. So all that says to me is we will communicate better and faster through technology, but we'll have to know how to do that. And AI, and what it does not say is AI will replace you. Some have said 10 years ago, but it's just not true. Advisors will always be that. They will advise clients in a way that AI can never do. Becca, over to you. 5 years from now, marketing, brokerage, past, present, and next. What do you see? What's the thing that you focused on today?
Technology is a tool. It's a tool that we need to wield wisely, and that has to be embraced and wielded, though. So, I think, Andreas, you were the first person I knew that talked about how early adoption changed your career path. Those pieces are, there's going to be a lot more like you, I think. Okay, you're right. There's no one like you. But there's going to be that kind of base level understanding and knowledge of technology and the ability to adapt to different technologies. I think being adaptable and flexible in what technology that you're using is going to be a critical aspect of how we train up the next generations, because they get settled in their technology pretty quickly too, only to say, oh, by the way, yeah, just so you know, this is what you're doing now. And in 5 years from now, that's going to be completely different. In 10 years from then, it's going to be different. Creating that anticipation and that expectation that we all have to be constantly growing is
so. Is
pretty
it fair to restate that and say, if you stick your head in the sand, you will not be there? 2030 is going to be a real problem for you, because up and coming aggressive agents using tech have the ability to outpace you, right?
Well, I think more than that, we need to raise up the next generations of individuals who are ready for that, who don't feel like it's hitting them like smack in the head, like, oh my goodness, everything I learned is gone.
Well, the other thing I was just going to add to that is, bringing in people internationally as well and investing in universities is really, really important. A lot of people don't realize that 50% of Silicon Valley companies have been founded by foreign-born individuals. 67% of those with a doctorate in science and math are foreign-born, and so we really need to keep that pipeline going as well to keep America on the cutting edge of technology.
Well, I'm a citizen of this world, is what I always tell people. I've traveled. We've all traveled on this world. The fact is, a lot of investment, a huge chunk of investment, is overseas investment, business, personal, all of it. Right? We can only isolate for so long, but humankind survives and thrives together. So I think that's absolutely spot on. What happens at these schools is paramount. We talked about mentorship in prior calls. Becca, to your point, bringing up the next generation, which is a scary, large pool. The transfer of wealth that's occurring today is massive. It's the largest in history. And a lot of that, on the commercial side, these owners can't transfer to their kids the way they may have envisioned. This next generation doesn't want to do it like they did it, or doesn't understand it, or can't. I think everybody should be required to join the Navy, because clearly Saul, it worked and does work. That's the life skill coach you need. But that all being said, I do just don't forget to tune in, post, like, review. Thank you. Special thank you to our audience. Special thank you to Mr. Mendoza for all he did for the show prior. We're with a new show producer. Catch us anywhere you get your audio, everywhere you get your social. And see us in person. Saul International MLS, Toronto, Canada, September 25th, 26th. Upcoming in London, CRE Tech. Join CRE Collaborative, join myself, July 1st. New York City, CRE Tech, October 21st, 22nd. Darren, you're always traveling. I don't know where to point you next. See Darren either at Pace University, enroll, support the school, and take his class, and call him for help. We're all here. We're all looking to listen. I want to thank our audience again for everything you do for us. And with that, we're looking forward to seeing you in July and all the way to our 100th episode and beyond. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. Thank you to my hosts for making this easy, co-hosts. It's been a great hour. Talk to you soon. See you. See ya.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome back. For the first time ever in the Roundtable history, we are welcoming remotely in a pre-report one of our Roundtable hosts who couldn't join us tonight, the one, the only, the elusive, but ever better and more entertaining, informative. It's just a pleasure to have on the show. Dan Wagner out of the Inland Group of Companies. Dan, you are fresh out of DC. What's the latest and greatest?
Andreas, it's great to be with you, and I love, plowing new ground here. This is a whole new way of doing stuff for this incredible podcast, and I've been with you since the beginning, and it's fun to see you grow and change, and this is terrific. So,
Yeah, 100
thank you.
episodes come December. We
How
are
many?
100th episodes.
Wow!
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be great.
A global audience, 4,000. And thank you for the shameless plug that I now have to bring in. Over 4,000 downloads and tune-ins monthly. We are live globally, anywhere you get your audio and video across major social media platforms. 75% of our audience here in the US. A special shout out to our audience overseas, 25% of which, majority in Europe, right, in the UK. So thank you to our listeners without whom this would not have been possible. And thank you to my good friend, Dan Wagner, and all he does. But I'm going to hammer you a bit more before you sign off, because I know you've got places to be. You're in DC. There's a huge regulatory week, right? It's legislative week. What are we worried about? What's the one piece of advice and the one worry you have?
Well, I got to tell you, the National Association of Realtors does their annual mid-year meeting, and there's nothing better than being in Washington with thousands and thousands of realtors, because realtors are boots on the ground, knowing what's happening in the districts of all these elected officials, and so that's why the realtor party has such power, because every single member of Congress has a realtor attached to them. So I want to first highlight that every realtor. There's one person called a federal political coordinator who goes and manages to bring the people from their area to meet with their member of Congress, to meet with their senator. And it's been the meetings have been just fabulous. Very, very positive. The reality of the big, beautiful bill, I mean, that's what everything is hinging on. People were surprised that Mike Johnson, the speaker, was able to get it passed so quickly in the House by one vote. And so now everything has gone from the House Ways and Means Committee and then the overall bill passage over to the Senate Finance Committee. And the Senate Finance Committee now is, they're pushing back. There's different senators that are saying, hell no, or possibly. And right now the Senate, if they had 3 senators, Republican senators, to vote no, because we're assuming that no Democrat would vote for it, you'd have 3 Republican senators vote no, then it would be Vice President Vance would have to come in to break the tie. But in regards to how does this bill look for real estate, it's very positive. First of all, the 1031 like-kind exchange is not being attacked, which is wonderful, which goes to show.
Even.
Oh, it is. It is. Andreas, it's really because I think of the amount of work that the realtors have put into it over the years to really wake up members of Congress to say the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I mean, it's really the best.
I think it's from our show and us coining, or you coining the 1031 is the 401k for commercial real estate investors.
Amen. Amen. Well, considering every member of Congress's staff is like 22 years old, you got to bring it down and be able to say, look, this is what it is. And a 401k of real estate is the best way to explain it. They get it then.
Yeah.
But so the 1031 is good. And then the other thing is opportunity zones. So opportunity zones, a lot of people, I know you've been involved with opportunity zones. They're important for our industry. And in 2026, they're still going to have it, but a lot of the benefits have cycled off, and then under this bill, the new benefits would cycle back on as of January 1st of 2027. So right now, one of the things we're working with the Real Estate Roundtable and the National Association of Realtors and just everybody in Washington to try to get that to be January 1st of 2026. So that all those new benefits are cycled on then. So it's you get a bigger bang for your buck. So that's one of the goals we're trying to work out. The other aspect are now going to be that impacts real estate directly is going to be your SALT tax. That's the state and local property tax deduction. That used to be unlimited, and then the last TCJA bill, it turned into $10,000, and we thought they were just going to get rid of the marriage penalty, where you could have each spouse would be able to do 10,000, so it'd be 20, but actually they jumped it to 40. So that's a big deal, and that's a major deal for especially the blue state folks.
Right. So the exemption for real estate gift tax raised to 15 million, right? The REIT asset tax allocation increased from 20 to 25%.
Yeah.
Low, and to be fair, guys, I have a cheat sheet. I know Dan knows this in his head. I don't. Low income housing tax credits, housing credit ceiling was increased. The maximum amount of taxpayer can expense was increased to 2.5, phase out to 4 million. That's section 179. Bonus depreciation, which you started with. Bill reinstates 100% first year bonus depreciation for assets acquired and in place before 2025. And then the other thing you mentioned, I believe, was the qualified business deduction passed through entities was also increased. It also applies to REIT dividends. So a lot of good stuff for real estate. All of one
overview, Andreas. Man, oh man, you got to come with me to DC. You are good.
Yeah, I would love to, but I've got you elevate the bar. I had my notes since we're doing this one-on-one. So you're there, you're in the room, things are happening. Real estate, as I always tell people, and maybe I have a vested interest in saying it, commercial is always a solid investment, right? Markets are in turmoil, flee to real estate. Markets are great, diversify in real estate.
Yes.
The answer is with the amount of wealth passing generationally, there's so much real estate transferring, and there's always a pathway to profit. So you told us the good. What, if any, bad? What's the ugly for the month? What should people be focused on as they go through the month?
The big thing, I think, especially in suburban markets, I know, and it all depends where you're at, but buildings that had a certain high value that were office are now being somewhat, in my opinion, given away. But that when you have those kind of major shifts in value, it gives opportunity for the entrepreneur. So people are able to get these unbelievable buildings for really low prices, and then they're able to possibly reconfigure that office into apartments. And it's very expensive, as we know, to do, but that's kind of the big thing that's out there. I know in everybody's market, that's part of what what everyone was talking about in Washington, what amongst folks in our industry, that's a big issue right now.
Yeah, so people ask me all the time, how's the real estate market? And I always have to, I have to be careful because it's kind of getting candid in the response. Well, the real estate market is like a shark. It has to continue to move, right? So the fact that or else it dies. But luckily there's an ocean to swim through. There's a pathway to profitability. There's opportunity everywhere. Those office buildings are expensive, but maybe those opportunity zones will help, right? Those designated zones, anything to move the needle. And I agree, housing does not provide as much on a taxable basis to wherever it is. The value of that asset does go down. In theory, depending on what you build and how you convert. But it is life, death, rebirth. Birth.
That's what happens. That's how it works, and it can be great for the people that time it right, and it can be really difficult for the people that time it unfortunately wrong. But that was one of the big takeaways at this conference that people were talking about. I'm also part of the Realtors Land Institute, and the farm world is really getting jazzed up by the possibility of huge profits for farmers that sell if they're in the right place. They could sell their farmland for $150,000 an acre if a data center is going to go on the property. So if you're in that sweet spot of having farmland where you intersect with all the power grid, you intersect with water. It's like winning the lottery. Some of these farmers are doing.
Well, it's like striking oil in Texas.
It is.
Before oil was oil. Yeah.
It is. So that was an unusual thing that I heard. Is those kind of. I mean, this again. That's few and far between. It is like the lottery, but that was interesting for me to learn about. There is a big push for the infrastructure of electricity, and one of the difficulties is everybody wants to have green energy. And so the possibility, it could also be that these smaller nuclear, like one-offs where you have your own little nuclear power plant in your factory or at your data center.
Substations. type
I
deal.
don't know how to describe it, but it's somehow they're able to make it where it's not like having a nuclear power plant, but it's a very small little version of like a nuclear transformer. So that gets a little bit into the interesting scientific weeds for me, but they were talking about that as a possibility as well for these data centers. So data centers are interesting because we definitely have to have them for Meta, for all the AI stuff, but some economic development people that were there talked about how when you build a data center, you of course have jobs to build, but once a data center is in place, it's only about 5 or 6 people that you might need to run the whole thing. And then communities are able to get a good tax off of the tax for using the electricity. But if you don't have the electrical network in place, then it really puts pressure on other businesses in town. And so you have some pushback, which you might not have thought was going to be there. So economic development people are questioning if this is the best use of development in their community because they might be undersourced for the electrical. So it's very intriguing, these different nuances.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's why you need experts in different areas, and you compile your team, and they go out and find it. Right. That's the hidden sauce in the whole roundtable is experts, foremost experts, earliest adopters. We're sitting here, we're talking. We each rely on those smarter than us, next to us, working together to get it done. We've seen that here. I'm outside of New York, right? I'm in Connecticut. The demand for AI, the generational demand, the demand on our grids. It's there, and we have to adapt. But smart developers know the right people, the right ULI members, right? Real Chilean Institute members, right? And they're putting together smart packages. There's a campus here, and I'll do a different shameless plug. It's 228 acres, right? With its own exit off one of the major corridors here in Connecticut, northern Connecticut. That's for sale, guys. That would make it an incredible center. And there's a rezone underway. So what does that mean? Opportunity is around the corner. But I'm not going to go too far into that. Dad, thank you for taking time out, carving it out to do this recording. I'm looking forward to doing more of these as we keep growing. Anything else you want to say to the fellow host before I kick you off, or rather before I let you go?
Well, remember that one of the best investments you can make as a realtor is being a part of the association. So your local, state, and national association provide incredible resources of staff that are boots on the ground at every location, and they are there to help serve you and make you profitable in your business. So I'm a big proponent, and thank God for the National Association of Realtors. And I also thank God for Andreas and creating this podcast, which is great. Thank you, Andreas.
I will parrot Saul, right? What has NAR given us? Everything. The road,
everything,
plumbing, all of it. Right? I've been card carrying member since 2007.
Yeah.
I'll say it a different way. The top 5 institutions in the world are happy to pay the brokerage world. The top 10% of brokers, pretty sure, are happy to pay their realtor fees because it brings so much to the table.
1,000%. Tell everybody hi.
Yes, I tell everyone hi. Thank you so much for all you do, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Nothing but love. See you later, Andres.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Roundtable, powered by CRECo.ai, your source for the latest in real estate and technology. For past episodes, sector interviews, and more great content, follow us on all social media and YouTube at CRE Collaborative. You can also find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please like, subscribe, and share. It really does help. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next Real Estate Roundtable.